Well, we have heard from the Kremlin in the last hour or so saying that Ukraine has been given a signal to continue the war. That's after President Trump approved billions of dollars of new arms sales. This is Dmitrij Peskov, who speaks to the media. He described that announcement as very serious. In Ukraine and in Russia, meanwhile, Russian officials are saying a Ukrainian drone attack overnight on regions near the border have injured at least 18 people. In Ukraine, a strike on Zaporizhia by Russian drones overnight injured 2, and several buildings were badly damaged. The war in Ukraine also high on the agenda in Brussels. You can see them here, foreign ministers who are meeting there from the 27 European Union member states. They're at a meeting today. We've heard from the EU's chief of diplomacy, you can see her in the background there, Kaja Kallas, saying that she hoped for an agreement on a new round of sanctions on Russia. But let's take you to Kyiv now. We can speak to Konstantin Yeliseyev, who is a former Ukrainian ambassador to the EU. Ambassador, good to have you with us. We'll talk about these proposed EU sanctions in a moment. But firstly, the focus of today is very much this interview that the BBC has had with President Trump. And what we've heard from the president in the past few days when it comes to Vladimir Putin, what you make of this shift and this change in tone and what you think this potentially could mean for Ukraine.
Good afternoon. First of all, from the very beginning, after his re-election as a president, Trump made a big accent to diplomacy. And he was trying to build bridges with President Putin, having a lot of phone talks. And finally, he understood that Putin is using any kind of conversation or negotiations or talks as a imitation of diplomatic negotiations. So Trump understands that Putin is lying. And after every phone conversation between Trump and Putin, Russia only strengthening its missiles and drone attack against Ukrainian cities and civilian infrastructure. So that is why, as I understand, Trump understood that he needs to switch from diplomacy to strength. Strength meaning, first of all, to increase supply of weapons to Ukraine, and secondly, sanctions, including secondary sanctions against Russian allies.
There's this growing frustration, as we've talked about, though, between President Trump and President Putin. And I wonder if you've seen a report in the Financial Times today that says that there was a conversation between Mr. Zelensky and Mr. Trump in which the US president asks Mr. Zelensky whether they would strike Moscow, whether they would make Russia feel the pain to get them back to the negotiating table. And Mr. Zelensky says that he could do that if you give us the weapons. Do you believe that is something that Ukraine would be prepared to do, to strike Moscow?
No, first of all, nobody wants peace more than Ukrainians. We want to stop this deadly war. This is for sure. At the same time, we must show to Russians that Ukraine is ready to protect its sovereignty and independence, because currently Putin wants to grab the whole Ukraine. He doesn't need neither Donbass nor Crimea. He would like to grab the whole Ukraine. So that's why currently Ukrainians are struggling for its existence, for our independence. So that is why President Zelensky made a very clear point that we will protect by all means, including also attacking Russian territory, including the Russian military base, and of course making deep strikes. For that, of course, we would need a kind of long-range missiles in order to show to Putin that he must be insecure in any cities and towns in Russia, including in Kremlin.
Mr. Yeliseyev, but what has been the reaction in Ukraine to this sort of slightly mixed signal that we also got from President Trump, giving a 50-day deadline for there to be some kind of ceasefire announced? Many, I think, are saying that that just allows the Russians to continue with their summer offensive.
But first of all, we here in Ukraine, we received with a big relief the announcement of President Trump to deliver so needed weapons to Ukraine, including air defense system Patriot. And we are very much grateful to NATO Secretary General for his commitments to provide support and to mobilize financial resources to pay for US weapons. At the same time, here in Ukraine, we got with some skepticism President Trump's announcement about 50-day delay, because it means that it will be additional suffering in Ukraine, additional victims, and so on. We would prefer that Putin got an ultimatum from President Trump, and President Trump must introduce sanctions immediately in order not to allow to Putin to play any kind of game with Ukraine and with Western allies.
Mr. Yalasevich, we have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you joining us here on BBC News.